Did you know that the DNA of Irish people is like a living time capsule, holding clues to some of the most fascinating chapters of human history? Despite being a small island on the edge of Europe, Ireland has a genetic story that's ancient, unique, and sometimes surprising. From its early settlers to its worldwide diaspora, Irish DNA has been shaped by isolation, invasion, and resilience. In this journey through Irish genetic history, we'll explore ancient migrations, bust some common myths, and discover what truly makes Irish DNA special. So if you've ever wondered about the real origins of those iconic red-haired, fair-skinned traits or where Irish surnames ended up around the world, stick around. This is going to be eye-opening. Ireland's genetic story begins around 10,000 years ago, after the last ice age. As glaciers retreated and the climate warmed, small groups of hunter-gatherers traveled from mainland Europe to Ireland. These early explorers likely arrived from Iberia, modern-day Spain and Portugal, and parts of Britain, navigating rivers, coasts, and open seas. Here's something that might surprise you. Genetic studies reveal these ancient people had dark skin, dark hair, and blue eyes, quite different from what many picture as typically Irish today. These hunter-gatherers lived simply but effectively, hunting deer and wild boar, fishing in abundant waters, and gathering berries and nuts from Ireland's forests. While these first inhabitants didn't leave a major genetic legacy in modern Irish DNA, only small traces remain. They laid the groundwork for all human settlement on the island. They buried their dead in caves or near rivers, suggesting a deep spiritual connection with the natural landscape, a connection that would remain important throughout Irish history. Around 6,000 years ago, a major shift occurred in Ireland that would change everything. This was the Neolithic Revolution, marked by the arrival of farming communities with entirely new ways of life and new genes. These Neolithic farmers came originally from Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, having spread across Europe over thousands of years. They didn't just hunt and gather, they cultivated crops, raised livestock, and built permanent settlements. With them came wheat, barley, cattle, and sheep, along with new technologies for pottery making and tool crafting. One of their most impressive legacies is Newgrange, an enormous stone tomb aligned with the winter solstice. This remarkable monument was built more than 5,000 years ago, making it older than the Egyptian pyramids. Such structures reflect the farmers' spiritual beliefs, likely centered around sun worship and ancestor reverence. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Despite their massive cultural impact, the Neolithic farmers' genetic contribution to modern Irish people is surprisingly small. This is because soon another wave of migrants would arrive, leaving a much deeper genetic imprint. Around 4,000 years ago, during the Bronze Age, Ireland experienced another major transformation. This time, migrants came from the Pontic-Caspian steppe, a vast region covering modern-day Ukraine and southern Russia. These Bronze Age newcomers brought metalworking skills, changing Ireland forever. Bronze tools, weapons, and ornaments became common across the island. They also introduced horses, which transformed travel and warfare, and likely brought early forms of Indo-European languages that would later evolve into Celtic languages. Here's the genetic bombshell. Studies show that over 90% of modern Irish DNA can be traced to these Bronze Age people. This suggests a near-complete replacement or heavy mixing with earlier populations. These migrants also carried genes for lighter skin and hair, traits now commonly associated with the Irish. Bronze Age Ireland wasn't just about survival, it was a society that valued hierarchy and craftsmanship. Burial sites from this period show evidence of warrior elites, buried with weapons, jewelry, and elaborate grave goods. By the end of the Bronze Age, Ireland was already beginning to resemble the Ireland of legend, an island of tribes, warriors, and rich oral traditions. For centuries, most people believed the Irish descended directly from the Celts, warrior peoples from Central Europe known for their distinctive art, language, and traditions. But modern genetics tells a different story. While Ireland absolutely embraced Celtic culture, there's little evidence of a mass Celtic migration from Central Europe to Ireland. The Celts are associated with the Hallstatt and La Tène cultures that developed in what is now Austria and Switzerland. These cultures spread across Europe, but genetic studies show minimal genetic contribution from these regions to Ireland. So how did Ireland become so Celtic in culture? The answer is cultural diffusion. Through trade, travel, and interaction, Ireland adopted Celtic traditions without a massive influx of new people. The Irish language, oral traditions, and artistic styles we associate with Celtic culture spread through influence and exchange rather than conquest. This challenges one of the biggest myths about Irish heritage, but also offers a deeper understanding of Irish identity. Being Irish isn't defined by one group or migration, it's a blend of many influences shaped by both genes and ideas. Ireland has one of the highest percentages of red-haired individuals in the world, with about 10% of the population having red hair and up to 30% carrying the gene for it. This trait is linked to a specific variant of the MC1R gene, which became more common in the Irish population over time. But red hair isn't the only distinctive trait. Irish people also have higher frequencies of genes associated with fair skin. This likely evolved as an adaptation to Ireland's cloudy, low-sunlight climate, allowing for better vitamin D synthesis. Combined, these features contribute to what many recognize as the Irish look. Interestingly, Irish DNA also carries clues to certain health conditions. For example, people of Irish descent are more likely to have genetic predispositions to celiac disease and hemochromatosis, a condition that causes the body to absorb too much iron. This doesn't mean everyone with Irish ancestry will develop these conditions, but the genetic markers are more common in Irish populations. In the 8th century, a new chapter in Irish history began with the arrival of Vikings. These Norse warriors initially came as raiders, targeting wealthy monasteries filled with gold and valuables. But soon, they became settlers, merchants, and city builders. The Vikings established some of Ireland's earliest towns. Dublin, Wexford, Waterford, and Limerick all began as Viking settlements. These towns became crucial hubs of trade and commerce, connecting Ireland with Scandinavia, Britain, and mainland Europe. Viking influence helped transform Ireland from a collection of rural tribes into a society with growing urban centers. Despite their cultural impact, the Viking genetic contribution to Ireland was relatively modest. DNA studies show that coastal regions, particularly around Dublin, have Norse genetic markers, but the overall Viking genetic footprint is smaller than many might expect. Some modern Irish surnames hint at this ancestry. For example, Doyle, from the Gaelic, O'Doobgale, means descendant of a dark foreigner, referring to Viking settlers. Ireland's geographic isolation played a huge role in preserving the distinctiveness of its DNA. Unlike mainland Europe, where populations frequently intermingled due to wars, trade, and migration, Ireland's island status created a natural barrier that limited outside genetic influences for centuries. This isolation allowed Ireland to maintain a more homogeneous gene pool, especially in rural areas. Genetic studies have shown that many Irish people can trace their ancestry back to specific regions of Ireland with remarkable accuracy. This is because, historically, Irish communities were relatively insular, with little movement between regions. However, this isolation also had downsides. Limited genetic mixing meant that certain hereditary conditions became more common. For instance, Ireland has a higher prevalence of cystic fibrosis compared to other European populations, a result of genetic bottlenecks in the island's history. At the same time, this isolation allowed Ireland to retain many genetic markers from its ancient populations. While other parts of Europe were influenced by waves of migration, Ireland's DNA remained closer to that of its early inhabitants. This is part of what makes Irish DNA so valuable to researchers studying ancient human migrations. Irish surnames tell fascinating stories about heritage and history. Most Irish surnames can be traced to three main origins. Gaelic surnames often beginning with O, meaning grandson of, or Mac, Mick, meaning son of. Examples include O'Brien, descendant of Brian, McCarthy, son of Carthage, and O'Neill, descendant of Niall. Norse Gaelic surnames created during Viking settlements. Examples include Doyle, dark foreigner, McLaughlin, son of the Viking Lachlan, and Higgins, from the Norse name, Higgen. Norman and English surnames introduced after the 12th century. Examples include Burke, from de Burgh, butler, Fitzgerald, and Walsh, meaning Welshman. The distribution of these surnames across Ireland creates a genetic map of sorts. Even today, certain surnames remain concentrated in specific regions: O'Malley's in Mayo, McCarthy's in Cork, and O'Neill's in Ulster. This regional distribution reflects ancient clan territories and limited population movement throughout much of Irish history. When millions of Irish people emigrated during the Great Famine of the 1840s and other difficult periods, they carried these surnames across the world. Today, these names have distinct patterns of distribution in the diaspora. United States. The largest concentration of Irish surnames is found in Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago, the major entry points for Irish immigrants. Names like Kennedy, Sullivan, and Murphy became prominent in American politics and culture. Canada. Newfoundland has such a high concentration of Irish surnames that parts of it are nicknamed the most Irish place outside Ireland. The Ottawa Valley and parts of Ontario also have significant Irish surname concentrations. Australia. Irish surnames are common throughout Australia but especially in Victoria and New South Wales, reflecting the patterns of both voluntary migration and convict transportation. Argentina. Surprisingly, Argentina has one of the largest Irish diasporas in South America, with surnames like Dillon and Kelly being relatively common. What's fascinating is how these surnames sometimes changed in their new homes, shortened, anglicized, or adapted to local languages, creating new branches of ancient family trees. Today, Ireland's genetic story is global. Over the centuries, especially during the 19th century Great Famine, millions of Irish people left the island in search of better opportunities. As a result, there are now more people of Irish descent living abroad than on the island itself, an estimated 70 million worldwide compared to Ireland's population of just over 5 million. Modern DNA testing services have allowed people around the globe to explore their Irish roots. Many have discovered that their family trees stretch back to Ireland, with DNA markers tying them to specific regions on the island. The most common Irish genetic markers are linked to populations in the west and north of Ireland, areas traditionally associated with Gaelic-speaking communities. What's remarkable is that even across oceans and generations, Irish genetic markers remain identifiable. Irish communities abroad maintain strong cultural ties to their homeland, passing down traditions, music, and sometimes even language through generations. In places like Boston, Chicago, and Sydney, generations of Irish immigrants often married within their communities, preserving genetic lineages. DNA studies have also revealed unexpected connections. Many African Americans have discovered Irish ancestry, reflecting complex histories of interaction in America's early development. Similarly, countries like Argentina have surprising genetic connections to Ireland due to waves of 19th century immigration. So what is the science revealing today? Recent advances in DNA technology have uncovered some surprising insights into Irish genetics. For one, studies have revealed unexpected connections between the Irish and ancient populations from regions like Iberia and Scandinavia. This has led researchers to propose that Ireland was part of a much larger prehistoric trade and migration network than previously thought. One of the most exciting discoveries is the genetic diversity within Ireland itself. While Irish people are often thought of as a single genetic group, modern research has shown subtle but significant differences between regions. For example, people from Ulster in the north have genetic markers distinct from those in Munster in the south, reflecting centuries of localized marriage patterns and different historical influences. Scientists have also used Irish DNA to study ancient diseases and human evolution. By analyzing the genomes of ancient Irish remains, researchers have gained insights into how human populations adapted to challenges like climate change and disease over thousands of years. So, what it means to be Irish? The story of Irish DNA is as rich and complex as the history of Ireland itself. From ancient settlers and Bronze Age warriors to Viking traders and global emigrants, every chapter has left its mark on the Irish genetic code. What we've learned challenges some traditional ideas. The Irish are not primarily descendants of Celtic warriors from Central Europe. Their genetic roots go back much further, primarily to Bronze Age migrants from the Pontic steppe. Celtic culture came to Ireland more through ideas than through people. Yet despite these many influences, Irish DNA has remained remarkably stable over millennia. The core genetic makeup of Irish people has changed surprisingly little since the Bronze Age, a testament to Ireland's geographic isolation and the resilience of its people. Today, Irish identity lives in DNA spread across the globe, from Boston to Buenos Aires, from Sydney to Toronto. It's found in red hair and freckles, in surnames beginning with O and Mick, in genetic health markers, and in family stories passed down through generations. So what does it mean to be Irish? Genetics tells us it's not just about Celts or Vikings or any single group. Instead, it's about a unique blend of ancient peoples whose legacy lives on in millions of people worldwide. It's about cultural traditions that transcend genetics. And it's about stories, the ones written in our DNA and the ones we choose to tell about who we are and where we come from. Whether you carry Irish genes or simply appreciate Irish culture, this genetic journey shows us that identity is both more complex and more connected than we often imagine. And that might be the most Irish trait of all, finding unity in our complex, interwoven stories. Slán go foil, goodbye for now.